What's going on YouTube? So the Mazda CX-5 has established itself as a favorite within the Mazda lineup, as well as the compact segment.
And we've spent the last week with the new carbon turbo trim, which has a sporty edge to it.
So after living with this for 7 days, is the Mazda magic still alive? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Alright, so let's start things out here under the hood. Now, as you probably picked up on, this is called carbon turbo, and that does mean it has a turbocharged engine. This is the 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, making 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque.
It is paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission. All-wheel drive is standard on all CX-5 models, and as far as the fuel economy, it comes in at 24 miles a gallon combined, rated by the EPA. Of course, we'll be discussing our real-world fuel economy over the past 7 days as well in the test drive portion.
And while we're on that test drive, we're going to show you the performance of this engine. We're going to get things like our signature sound level readings so that we can compare this vehicle to all the competition at carconfections.com. But let's close up the hood and see what type of special exterior touches we get for the carbon turbo. So as far as the exterior design is concerned, of course Mazda has pretty much continually updated this model with several different refreshes, and this is the latest front end design. Of course, this is the carbon turbo as we mentioned earlier, so that is going to give you some sportier bits, especially up here in the front. So you notice we have this smoked chrome that's going to go wrap around to make that kind of signature Mazda smile. And then you also have the dark finish here in the center section and some gloss black along the lower fascia as well. Now, as far as the overall look, you're probably noticing that something looks quite a bit different. Well, that's because we have a new color option for 2024. This is called Zircon Sand. This is an exclusive color to this carbon turbo model, and it really stands out. Of course, Mazda has a beautiful color palette, but this is a great addition to the lineup. Now, let's take a look at the headlights. Very premium looking full LED headlights. Since this is an upper end trim level, these are also adaptive LED headlights. I do want to say something though. We used the auto high beams earlier this week, and we're having a little bit of a problem where they turned off pretty late, so they're kind of blinding other drivers. I'm not sure if that's specific to just this unit, but again, very premium look, especially with these daytime running lights that remind me of BMW. Now as we move around to the rear design, just like with the front, we have a very handsome look. It has kind of evolved gently over the years, but still continues to look quite good.
Yeah, even in the past week, even though this vehicle is not new in any aspect, we've had a lot of people that just said, I just absolutely love the way this looks. So I certainly take that as a good thing. Now let's go ahead and break down some of the individual design elements. So we do have an exposure wiper through here, and let's take a look at our taillights and see if all the elements are LED. That's something we do in all of our Car Confections reviews. And as you can see, we do have an LED brake light portion, LED turn signal indicator, nice amber color, and we also have an LED reverse light. So honestly, this taillight design is more premium than the vast majority of luxury cars. I really love the way this looks, and that's standard on the premium trims and above. Now as we drop down to this lower area, all of this is going to be finished in a piano black. You do have a little bit of rugged matte black down here at the very bottom. I do want to point out you get exposed exhaust on every version of the CX-5. I really like that. With the turbo, you get the larger diameter exposed exhaust, and as far as your tow rating, it's 2,000 pounds.
Now when it comes to the wheels, virtually the entire lineup are going to have 19-inch alloy wheels. This carbon turbo will have a gloss black finish, which I think looks quite nice. We also have the gloss black finish that goes around the wheel arches, lower parts of the body, as well as up here on the mirrors. And then speaking of the mirrors, we are going to have standard heating, standard blind spot monitoring, and then upper trim levels will have power folding, although it does not include this one.
Now here at the side, we have that signature CX-5 look. I think it looks really good here at the side. And as far as the overall length, it's 179.1 inches long, which is quite a bit shorter than most things in the segment. We'll talk about how that translates to interior space in just a minute. Now, as far as some of the other design elements, I do want to point out this particular trim level does not have roof rails, so that's just something to keep in mind. Now, as far as your safety systems are concerned, you will have all 4 active safety features as standard equipment on every single CX-5. Definitely happy to see that. Additionally, if you choose a Turbo Premium or a Signature, that will also add rear auto braking and a traffic jam assist function. But guys, that wraps up the exterior of this new Carbon Turbo trim level. There's a really cool interior waiting for you. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
Now let's move on to the interior. First, of course, take a quick look at the key fob. You do have a smart entry system. This is Mazda's typical key fob where the buttons are over here on the side. They have not updated the CX-5 to have sensors behind the door handles like some of their other models, so you do need to press that black button there to unlock the door. All right, and take a look inside. So just like with the exterior, there's not like any huge design changes for 2024, but the Carbon Turbo does add some special touches. What you're probably seeing right off the bat here are these seats. This is the special touch for the Carbon Turbo. This is called Terracotta. And this is an exclusive interior color for this model. This is actually the only trim you can get this in. And as you can see, very premium look to this. This is a real leather going on the outside edges, and then we have a black suede running through the center, which is good for gripping you when you're going around corners, which obviously this is a pretty sporty crossover, and it just looks fantastic in my opinion. Now, coming down to the seats themselves, you do have 8 ways of power adjustment, 2-way lumbar support. You also have memory seats on this trim level as well. And I do want to kind of add a little detail to what I said earlier. This is one of 2 color options you get on the exterior. You can also get white, but as far as the Carbon Turbo, you just have 2 exterior colors and 1 interior choice. But let's go ahead and climb inside and get into the details. Now that we're fully inside, let's go ahead and go through just the rest of the cabin materials. So we continue to have a very premium space inside of this CX-5. We have leather over here on the armrest with a really nice padding. We have leather all through the center section. We even have a leather material all across the top with the double stitching detail. So we move to the upper dashboard. This is going to be a soft touch plastic. We have the nice leather strip running through the center section. This has a faux carbon fiber. You can get a layered wood on the signature trim if you choose that. And then down here along the tunnel, this is also going to be padded with a leather material. Overall, like I said, very nicely done cabin. It continues to be very solid and feels premium. But let's go ahead and fire it up with the push button start. And now that it's fired up, let's get into some individual details. Starting with our gauge cluster, this is your typical Mazda affair. The center section is a reconfigurable 7-inch display where you can go through some basic information, and then you've got your kind of more traditional analog gauges on the outside edge. The Carbon Turbo, though, does also have a head-up display, and I like the head-up display with the information that it has in it, especially the blind spot monitoring. I think is a cool addition. Now, all Mazdas do have standard rain sensing wipers. And as far as the steering wheel, we do have a nice leather wrap steering wheel with paddle shifters on the back. As far as the wheel itself, it is going to be manual tilt and telescoping. And then if you want a heated steering wheel, you would have to move up another trim level to that Turbo Premium model. This is the 3rd trim from the top, so you're going to see most of the premium features on board with this Carbon Turbo, but you will be missing a few of them, including that heated steering wheel. Let's go ahead and talk about interior storage. So this is Car Confections after all. We like to do a thing called the donut test. We fit how many donuts are inside the center console because that is our emblem. And inside of here we can fit 9 donuts. So this is going to be a little bit small for this segment, but that's been that way for a couple years now. As you can see, it's just a kind of a little bit narrow in terms of that overall size. But also do want to point out while we're in here that we have 2 new USB-Cs on board for 2024 since we have the Bose audio system. Now your 2 cup holders are going to be located right here, and then up in the front of that you have a wireless phone charging pad and a 12-volt outlet. Now, Taking a look at our shifter. This is a traditional style shifter. You just pull back for drive, bump to the left for manual shifting. Like I already pointed out, you do have paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Heading into reverse. This is our standard backup camera. So we actually do not have active trajectory on board. We also don't have any parking sensors with this trim level, but the top trim does come with a 360 camera system option. And as I shift back into park, this would be a fitting time for me to point out just an ergonomic quirk of the CX-5 that Mason and I have noticed this week. Perhaps this was fine when this vehicle first launched, but now, as you know, Stanleys are all the rage. So if you have a giant cup and set it here, it really is in the way with the shifter. So you try to shift and you start to bump into this cup. So just something to keep in mind if you're a fan of these giant cups here, it is going to get in the way. Now, let's take a look at our center console area here. You'll notice we have our signature assortment of buttons. There's some infotainment upgrades I'm going to talk about shortly, but first I want to mention you have your electronic parking brake with brake hold, and we also have the volume knob for the Bose sound system, which is on board with this carbon turbo. So let's take a sample of it. Yeah, so the overall sound quality of this system is pretty good. It certainly fills up the cabin nicely, and this is going to be more of a bass-heavy sound system if that's what you like. All right, coming into our climate controls, we still have pleasantly old-school, full physical climate controls. So you just twist these knobs to adjust your temperatures. You have all physical controls through there. We are going to have 3-stage heated seats on pretty much all the CX-5s. This version does also come with 3-stage ventilated seats for those of you who live in a hotter climate. All right, but let's not waste any more time. Let's talk about some big technology upgrades for 2024. That's the fact that we can now touch this screen in certain scenarios. So I do want to emphasize in certain scenarios. So watch me do it here. I am indeed touching this display, so you don't have to use exclusively that control knob, which can get a little bit frustrating when you're trying to go through some of the things on Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that this will still disable itself after you exceed a certain speed. I believe it's 5 miles per hour. Then you'll start touching this, and it's not going to work anymore. So you're going to have to go back to using the knob. I found that is a little bit of a psych out when you get used to touching this and then you start moving just a little bit and you want to finish that last thing that you were touching up here and then it locks out. Just something to keep in mind, but I am still glad that we can touch this in certain circumstances because you do have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and those systems are obviously designed for touch. And as far as the screen itself, I do want to say that this is a 10.25-inch display. And as far as the phone pairing and booting up Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, Mason and I have had no problems whatsoever during this week. Rising above, we have an auto-dimming mirror. HomeLink universal remotes are built in below that. And then the carbon turbo does come with a standard size sunroof.
Now let's check out the rear area of this CX-5. Now before we really dive into things, I do want to point out these rear doors open at nearly 90 degrees. So for those of you who have families, I think it'd be pretty easy to load in a car seat. So certainly a nice thing that Mazda's including with the door opening. Now as far as the rear specs, let's go ahead and dive into that. 39 inches of both leg and headroom is what Mazda claims this CX-5 is at. That does place it mostly on par with the rivals. However, I feel like that's a little bit off. This seems a little smaller than stuff like Toyota RAV4, quite a bit smaller than stuff like Honda CR-V. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why here at Car Confections we do the knee room measurement. So the seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", I'm 5'9", and we're looking at about 5.5 inches of extra knee room with those seat adjustments. That's not a ton of room for this segment. However, I do want to point out that there is a ton of foot room. Honestly, guys, I think I could play soccer underneath of this seat. It's absolutely insane how much vertical space you have for your feet. Now, as far as the features are concerned, here in the center, we do have rear vents. Of course, that's going to be a nice feature that's included. And then if we fold down the center armrest, we have 2 cup holders in here. And then this is where normally you would have the heated rear seat controls. You do have to get a higher end trim level to get heated rear seats. I believe it's Premium Plus on the gas model and the non-turbo versions, and then Turbo Premium and Signature get the heated rear seats, but the Carbon Turbo is missing out on that. Now here in the center, we have a nice little felt line storage area, but we do still keep 2 USB ports inside of there. Now, turning over to that door trim I was talking about earlier, it is a nicely finished one. I mean, it's the exact same materials as the front, so we have a nice leatherette in the upper part, carbon fiber trim. We have some leatherette in the armrest portion as well, and then bottle storage down in the very bottom. And then coming up to the tailgate, we do have a power tailgate, and that's included on really the vast majority of trim levels. And I do want to mention, hands-free is still not an available feature on the CX-5. Now, as far as this area is concerned, once again, the smaller exterior dimensions do mean that on the inside you are going to have less space than most of the rivals. 31 cubic feet behind the second row of seats. As a maximum, we're sitting at about 60 cubic feet of space. Now, some of your best options in the segment would be like Honda CR-V that come in around 75 to 76 cubic feet, Nissan Rogue, Toyota RAV4, they're all going to be about 15 cubic foot larger than this. Now, 15 cubic foot may not be a deal breaker for a lot of you guys, but it is going to be smaller. Now, as far as features are concerned back here, I'm really happy to tell you that the seats do fold 40-20-40 split, so that's really nice. All you have to do is use these little levers right here, and that's going to fold the seats down. I like that it's 40-20-40 split instead of 60-40. That's a more premium element. Excuse me, I do want to point out that the rear seats do not recline. I failed to mention that earlier, but I want to point that out. Now, here at Car Confections, we're all about our measurements. So let's measure from the back of the seat back to the rear of the cargo area, and we're sitting at 69 inches of overall length. Behind the second row of seats, we're sitting at about 37 inches of cargo length. And then as far as our cargo opening, 40 inches wide. Once again, going to be a little bit more narrow than most in the segment. If we fold up the floor, you will find a spare tire. Well guys, here we are behind the wheel of the 2024 Mazda CX-5, and in this test drive we're going to be talking about quite a few different things, as you can see on the screen right now. But first we're going to go ahead and start with a hard acceleration.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah, so, obviously, as we've been talking about throughout, carbon turbo. Turbo is the key word inside of that trim level, because you have the turbocharged 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. We've driven this engine in a number of Mazda products, and it always feels fast when you put your foot down. A lot of that has to do with the torque, but the power itself is very good as well. 256 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. So obviously that torque figure really is enough to push you back in your seat when you nail the throttle from a stop. And each shift you can also kind of feel that low-end torque just push you back again.
Yeah, and I do want to point out that rating is with premium fuel. So if you use regular, which this engine is premium recommended, so it's not required that you use premium, but if you use recommended, it will drop your horsepower down to 227 and 310 pound-feet of torque. So regardless, any way you cut it, whether you're using regular or premium fuel, you're still going to be getting a lot better power. The vast majority of things in this segment, like that Nissan Rogue driving in front of us, there's going to be a huge advantage compared to the vast majority of competitors, that is for sure. Now, I do want to point out on your lower end trim levels, you will have a standard 2.5 liter non-turbocharged engine. That's 187 horsepower, 186 pound-feet of torque. For 2024, that does get new auto start stop, so that's a new feature for this model year. However, it's going to be a pretty significant difference in terms of power between the non-turbo and the turbo models, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you can actually get a lot of the equipment you've seen today in this carbon turbo on the carbon edition. That model has that standard 2.5 power plant, so if you don't need the extra power, look into that trim level. It's not going to be exactly the same as this, but you will have a number of the kind of sporty sprinkling of elements on that trim level as well. Yeah, definitely the power comes on strong. Now, as far as the transmission, no changes for 2024. That means it remains a 6-speed automatic transmission. Yes, as we always say, that is less gears than the competition. This is an older transmission. It kind of has an old school feel in that way, but I think the big thing to keep in mind is, again, going back to that torque figure, because you have so much torque, it doesn't have to work as hard, downshifting, upshifting all the time. You can, punch it, and in the gear that you're in, get that acceleration you need without having to wait for a downshift.
Yeah. And as far as how the power is routed to the ground, you do have a standard all-wheel drive on every single version of the CX-5. That was an added feature in 2022, which does mean that you're only going to have 2 EPA estimated fuel economy figures, either 28 or 24 miles a gallon combined, depending on if you get the non-turbocharged model or the turbocharged version.
Now we went ahead and got onto a back road because this is a great place to demonstrate one of the key advantages CX-5 has over the competition.
Yep.
And that's the fact that Mazda just always emphasizes sporty driving dynamics. As you go around corners, you're going to notice that right away. I mean, it's really a night and day difference compared to a lot of the biggest selling rivals in the class.
Yeah.
For instance, the steering, very heavy. It has a lot of nice feel, quick response. It's really just a nice steering setup. It's good for an enthusiast. It's actually maybe almost a little too heavy for maybe an average person, but we certainly appreciate it. You're going to enjoy it when you go on a back road. The chassis really tuned nicely as well. When you go around corners, nice balanced feel to it. We said it before, we'll say it again. It just has, honestly, a German-esque kind of feel to it. That's really what makes it feel very upscale and sporty as well.
Yeah, I mean, of all types of SUVs, a lot of times you pay a big penalty when it comes to driving dynamics, but hopping out of, we personally daily drive a sedan, hopping into this SUV, it really doesn't feel all that different. It doesn't feel like a penalty box when it comes to driving dynamics, right, which is saying a lot, that's for sure. And that's why that's going to be today's slam dunk. That's going to be our favorite feature about the CX-5. There's a lot of things to like about this product, but I think the thing that stands out the most in 2024 is still the driving dynamics. No one really does the driving dynamics as good as the CX-5, that is for sure. Now, as far as our airball is concerned, what we're going to have to say is the continued airball that we've said for many years is just the space of this model. It is going to be quite a bit smaller than the competition, so do keep that in mind. If you're going to be one of those people that, a lot of families drive this segment of vehicle, it's going to be certainly something you need to consider. It's going to have less rear seats room as well as less cargo capacity.
Mason talked a little bit about the added auto start-stop to the base engine. You don't have that with the turbocharged engine, but let's talk a little bit about fuel economy as well. So we have been testing this out, obviously, this week. Let me find the full amount of miles we've gone and give you the average that we've achieved. All right, so we're looking at 22.6 miles per gallon. That's over about 200 miles, it looks like.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and grab a picture of that so you guys can see what that looks like. But yeah, 22.6 miles per gallon, that is pretty much in line with what the EPA is saying for this. It's a little bit lower than the combined rating, which doesn't surprise me. The combined is supposed to come in at 24. I'm not surprised it's a little lower because, of course, when we're reviewing these vehicles, we do accelerate a little harder probably than the average person does, and also we do idle the vehicle while we're reviewing it, so that does affect your fuel economy a little bit in a negative fashion, but overall, pretty much on the money when it comes to the EPA estimate.
Yeah, and if you want to know about more of a fuel economy rating on a controlled environment, we are going to have a video coming up where we do our real world fuel economy test. That's on again, like kind of a more controlled environment. This is just our week of experience with it. We drive the way that we drive. That has more controlled variables between models.
And of course, kind of going over those bumps there, I wouldn't be able to finish this review without talking about the ride quality of the CX-5. This is a family SUV, first and foremost, so we do need to talk about that aspect of it. Going along with the sportier character of this vehicle, it definitely does ride a bit firmer than most in the segment. Compared to like a RAV4 or a Honda CR-V, it's definitely going to let more intrusion inside of the cabin and have a firmer suspension setup because of that sportier character that this vehicle is known for. So do keep that in mind. Once again, that's a little bit of a trade-off. We certainly like that about the CX-5, but maybe you don't. I will also point out these seats over the past 7 days, I have noticed they're a little bit on the firm side as well. So if you like a firmer seat, you'll probably like this CX-5 seat. All right, let's get our sound level reading going 55 miles per hour. 55.5 decibels is our official Car Confections sound level reading, going 55 miles per hour. So that's a very good sound level reading, but I don't have to sit here and guess because we actually have posted all the sound level readings that we've done on this channel on carconfections.com/sound level readings. You can go check that out yourself on our website. We've posted them all, and we can see how the CX-5 compares. And cheers to consistency, because that does place it very similar to all the other CX-5s that we've tested. And it's going to be very much on the quieter end when it comes to this compact SUV segment. There are a lot of different options in this segment, and the CX-5 has that more premium feel that a lot of you guys like, and that translates to your sound entering into the cabin as well. Now, lastly, I do want to point out your warranty. It's going to be Mazda's signature warranty, which is a 3-year 36,000 mile basic, a 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. You do not get complimentary maintenance. Now let's go ahead and talk about pricing for this 24 CX-5. So we're going to start a little under 30 grand for the base select model, 29.3. As we move up the trim structure, there are quite a few different trim levels. This carbon turbo starts at 37 grand, and the turbo signature is $40,600. Now, this particular model, if you want to see the window sticker here, $37,000 is our base price. We have the optional paint, the optional integrated Mazda nav, $1375 destination, $39,410 as tested today. Now, if you're looking to buy a Mazda CX-5 or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. Now, by going to our website, that's going to connect you with local dealers in your area to get you the best price on your new vehicle. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealer negotiation. If you'd like to take advantage of that, a link is provided in our video description. And guys, that's going to be where we leave off on this in-depth 7-day review of the new 2024 Mazda CX-5 Carbon Turbo. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decision, which we hope you did, because that's really the point of us making these reviews, we would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're joining in on this Car Confections family. We do a ton of automotive content that I'm sure you won't want to miss out on, so please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you're already part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.